sixth Pirkei Avos. Pasuk says, "Valuchos masa Elokim hema." The luchos, the tablets, were written by God. Vamichtav Elokim, and the writing is writing of God. Chorus al haluchos, that are dug out from the luchos. On stone, they wrote the letters by etching it out. Hashem did it. Al tikre chorus, don't call it etched out. El cherush, she'enloch ben chorin el mishosek b'talmud Torah. There's nobody that's considered free, only a person that's learning. So, shekol misha osek b'Torah hareza masala. Whoever learns Torah, he elevates himself. Elevation. So there's nobody who's free unless he learns Torah. What does that mean? Women are not commanded to learn Torah. I hope you feel free.
No.
Of course, where's the answer going to be?
Parsha of the week.
Parsha of the week. This is going to be a fascinating thing. Probably most of you don't know it all. Most people, not you, most men never heard of it. Yeshiva men never heard of it. Let me read with a question that was bothering me in the Parsha. This is in Perek Yud Gimel, 13th chapter, sentence 11. When Hashem brings you into the land of the Kanani, Eretz HaKanani, that He swore to your fathers and gives it to you, you should bring in front of you all the firstborn to Hashem. All the firstborn should be brought in front of you. V'chol peter sheger behema, and all the firstborn of the animals, ashir lecha, which are male animals, haschorim, belong to Hashem. Or you only sacrifice on the altar the male animals, firstborn. It didn't say men in the beginning of the sentence. It said you should pass in front of you all the firstborn, and it didn't say men. So what's the implication? Excuse me?
Animal.
Which is women too. Female. It sounds like the female firstborn also have a certain holiness for God. And then later on it says like this. Every firstborn donkey you should redeem with a sheep. And if you don't redeem him, you should break his neck. And every firstborn man in your sons, means men, you should redeem. So the first sentence said that it sounded like the women also have the sanctity of firstborn. The second sentence says the opposite. Only male firstborn have to be redeemed. You hear the question? The first sentence doesn't say anything about, in fact, it goes out of its way to leave out the idea of female. It says, any firstborn has a special holiness. The second sentence says, any firstborn male you have to redeem. The implication of firstborn woman you don't redeem, which is the law. Pidyon haben is only on a boy child, not on a girl child.
But not for Kohen.
Excuse me?
But not for Kohen.
Not for
Kohen.
Kohen.
The son of
Kohen.
a Kohen. But not, you don't redeem the son of a Kohen. They don't need to.
That's something else. What's that do with this?
Oh, that's not what you're referring to.
No, I'm talking about male and female. It's the first sentence says every firstborn, whether it's male, female, everything belongs to Hashem. And the second sentence says every male boy has to be redeemed. Okay. In fact, the Shulchan Aruch says, and this people don't, but this is clear in Shulchan Aruch, that there's the Beis Yosef writes in the text of the Shulchan Aruch that some people have a custom that girls also fast Erev Pesach, Tainis Bechoros. The Ramah says we don't, that's not our custom. But that's what he says. So I'm not getting now here to explain, maybe a different time before Pesach, what they're arguing, what the discussion is, but it's unbelievable. There was a custom of Jews that the girls fasted Tainis Bechoros, Erev Pesach. Just imagine fasting and having to do all that cooking and everything else. That's probably why the custom never took hold. But it's a little bit interesting, right? And he's actually just reading those opinions are just reading the sentences. The sentence says that you have to celebrate the firstborn. You have to separate and celebrate the firstborn female too. That's what the sentence says. But redeeming is only on the boys, not on the girls. I want to explain this today. If I tell you this is fascinating, I think it'll change everybody's view. Listen to this. Pasuk says like this: Miriam, in next week's Parsha, when they emerged from the Red Sea, Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the drum in her hands, and all the women followed her with drums and dancing. And Miriam answered to them, Shiru Lashem, let's sing a song to God. Ki go, he's exalted. A horse and his rider he threw down in the sea. The implication here is that Miriam, there's millions of women, there's millions of men, and they're both, Moshe's talking to the men. That's why Rashi says Moshe's saying the Oz Yoshir, the song that we sang on the emergence from the Red Sea to the men, and they're answering him. And Miriam is saying it to the women, they're answering her. It means there's a lot going on over here. Men and women, everybody singing together. And if they didn't hear, then you're not answering anybody. So actually, based on this, Rabbi Yaacov Weinberg actually paskins halacha, and it tells her people do this, that in holy matters, men and women are allowed to sing together. And it tells Yeshiva, because they followed the psak of Rabbi Yaacov Weinberg, the boys would come over to eat lunch, and the Rosh Yeshivas had daughters, they would all sing Zmiris together. That's his opinion like that. Others people say that if it's all together, and others say it has to be holy. It's not here to say if they're singing together and you can't discern the voice of an individual, as long as it's holy, it's okay. So based on either of those, both of them would permit boys and girls to sing together Zmiris, right? And that's what they did. My question is like this, a very simple question. It's so simple that you wonder why people don't ask the question. The Red Sea was what? There was 3 million Jews approximately in the Red Sea. Going through the Red Sea, before the Red Sea, there's no mention of women. Bnei Yisrael, the men. The first time women are mentioned as a separate entity is when they get out of the Red Sea. I mean, the place to say it on, we were running, Pharaoh's chasing us, we're running to the Red Sea, men and women. No, Bnei Yisrael. And upon emerging from the Red Sea, what do? We start talking about men and women. The men and women, the women weren't born in the Red Sea. When we left Egypt, it was men and women. It doesn't say one time men and women. We were actually running away for 7 days, right? From Mitzrayim. It doesn't say any place men and women. It just says the Jewish people left. All of a sudden, when they leave the Red Sea, it starts talking about the men were this, the women were singing this. What's changing over here? Why is there such a emphasis here on the women? I'll say a fascinating thing here. This is. If I tell you it's fascinating, it's fascinating. Everybody sitting here has always heard the criticism that Judaism is a religion that puts women down. It's regressive. That men have the mitzvahs, the men have a lot of things they can do in the community, and davening, and the women don't. So in some form they seem to be second status. And I say it's exactly the opposite. I want to hear clearly what I'm saying. In all Western civilization, till 100 years ago, who was the constituency of the king? Who were the king's subjects, his real subjects? Excuse me?
Landowners, the men.
Well, landowner, but even when it wasn't landowners, in the United States you didn't have to be a landowner, but it was the men. Women couldn't vote. That means the subjects were the political power, the ones that created the leader were the men. And women, the women are just there. They're not smart enough to vote or whatever it is. What I want to say here is saying the opposite. That the Torah is telling us that from the Red Sea on, when this is the emergence of our nation, I'll show you that's what the text says, it was men and women. Men and women. Men and womanhood. It wasn't men are receiving the Torah. It's not men that are the nation of God and their wives. It's men and women. In fact, the truth of the matter is, it's men and women really, like the Ramban says, have a higher level. So I'll explain that too. It's just a fascinating thing. The Jewish religion is the only religion, the only political country, political entity in which women are equal, if not equal, but superior in their status than the men. It literally doesn't exist anywhere in the world. Nowhere. I'm not talking about the countries where women are beaten up and enslaved and abused. I'm talking about in the Western civilization. Now you could have a prime minister as a woman. You could have a senator as a woman. But 100 years ago, you couldn't do that. They didn't deal with them. And I'm saying from Kriyas Yam Suf on, when the Jewish people became a nation, it was men and women equal. And not only not equal, but the women were in a higher status than the men, as the Ramban says, by creation. Miriam was organizing, marshaling, galvanizing the energy of womanhood in the Jewish people. She's the greatest woman of the era. She's a prophetess. And she's able to organize them, and they follow her. She goes out, and they all follow her. She galvanizes them, all follow her. And they start singing and dancing. She's leading, she's speaking, and they're answering her, and they're dancing together with her. Who is Miriam married to? Miriam is married to Kollel ben Yefunah. He was one of the great spies. He had a whole constituency, one of those people who stayed loyal to God. But he's also from the tribe of Judah. And who comes from the tribe of Judah? All kings come from the tribe of Judah. So it means like this. Cohen comes from whose tribe? Levi. But who has merited being a Kohen? Aaron. Aaron a Kohen. Aaron a Kohen is mentioned here also as the sister of Miriam. The brother of Miriam, which is also means even Miriam and he have a very unique relationship. a very unique and special relationship that later on he defends her. And it's because what's happening here, Miriam is the strongest personality among the women in Egypt. And now she is, at a time we're trying to create a nation, she's galvanizing them. She's married to somebody who's from him is going to come Malchus, and therefore she's sort of bringing her constituency along to become a source. So the Jewish king later on isn't just the king of the men. Who's he a king of? Men and women together. In all countries, it's not like that. Till 100 years ago, the most sophisticated English country, Western civilization, the king of the men, and the women were, the subjects, but they weren't part of the constituency. That's not the way it was by here. So our nation is men and women together. That's what the nation is. The fact that we find that it sounds like in the Megillah Esther, it says, and Balaturim says this is the most important sentence in the whole Megillah Esther. V'nishma piskam hamelech, the edict of the king shall be heard. Leos kol ish sorer bebeso. Every man should be a ruler in his house. The Gemara says on that sentence that people thought that Achashverosh was a fool. You're writing something that's so obvious. Everybody knows that. The Balaturim says on that sentence is the reason that we read Megillah, and the reason Megillah has a higher status than doing Avod in the Beis Hamikdash, and a higher status than learning Torah, is because it says V'nishma piskam hamelech ki rabahi, because it's great. The greatest edict of the Jewish people, the greatest thing is that every man should be a ruler in his house. And again, the Gemara says on that same pasuk that everybody said that Achashverosh was a fool. He had to write this. Everybody knows that. Yes, by Goyim, everybody knew that the man is in charge, because the woman is his property, or more or less. Whatever he wants to do with her, he does with her. As it was in Western civilization 225 years ago. What the Torah is telling us, yes, the man is the one who's supposed to be the ruler in his house. But who makes him ruler? The woman, that's the woman's choice, is that the husband should be the sower. That's the woman making that determination. She will put him in front. She's not interested, and her interest is not being out there and being in charge of interfamily relationships or interpersonal relationships with the other nations. A man needs to be out there. Be out there. She just wants to be in charge of the family. So she puts the husband out there. So Leos kol ish sorer bebeso is something the woman makes that he's the sorer bebeso. He really wouldn't be the sorer bebeso. They're both equal, if not, or not only not equal, but the woman's higher status. She puts him out there. The woman's the one who makes the husband and appoints him to be the one that's out there meeting and greeting. That's not what a woman wants, and she's very happy somebody else. The woman is the king maker. So Leos kol ish sorer bebeso means the woman is the king maker. The Jewish people, the entity of the Jewish people is men and women, and the fact that the men are officially in charge, that's the woman made that determination that they should be officially in charge. And I said in the past, and it's clear and from the Gemara in Chulin, that God created the universe that a woman would not have any problem letting the universe, the moon, God created the universe that the moon would have no problem whatsoever in the one that's out there more prominent being the son. Why would she have no problem? Because she's not interested in that. She's only interested in ruling inside. But be out there, she's happy that the son. So the fact that the moon questioned God and said, 2 kings can't share 1 crown, is she didn't understand herself what a woman was. In marriage, the woman is actually happy that the husband should be out there because she wants the home, and the husband should be out there. That's what the Jewish people do. Why do I say this is the creation of the Jewish nation? When you finish the story of the end of this chapter, is that the Jewish people, Miriam was dancing, and then they left the Red Sea, and God gave them the 7 Noahide laws. Even though they were already commanded in the 7 Noahide laws, God gave them a second level of 7 Noahide laws. In the first 7 Noahide laws is you're not allowed to rob because God doesn't want you to rob. You're doing something wrong against God. You're not behaving properly. In this second version here of the Noahide laws, it's not that you're doing something wrong against God. What are you doing? You're doing something wrong to your fellow man. The reason you're not allowed to rob is not only because you're not listening to God, but something else. Everybody has a right to their money, a right to their property. And therefore, when you rob, you're hurting your fellow man. That's something that they can understand and appreciate, somebody else's feelings and somebody else's feeling of being entitled to what's theirs. That's what the women contributed. So once the women became an identifiable entity in the Jewish people, now the Jewish people are capable of doing the 7 Noahide laws, not only as their relationship with God, but also as their relationship between each other, between men all over, between everybody, that you're not only not allowed to rob because you're doing something wrong against God, I'm hurting my friend. And that is something that women are able to understand and convey better. So then from the relationship between the men and the women were able to explain to the men felt the sense of family, they felt the sense of other people, that I have to be connected to them too, and I can't take away what's rightfully theirs. So the fact that we have a sense of somebody else other than ourselves, that's the influence that the women had on the men. Let me just say this, a big piece over here we're saying. A man thinks about what's right or wrong. Now, it's wrong to steal. Okay, terrible thing to do. You're not allowed. God told me not to steal. A woman empathizes with the loss of money that the other person feels. She adds a whole new dimension to the law, that it's not only between my relationship with God, but it's my relationship to my fellow, to my neighbor, to my friend. I can't take from them. In fact, in most families, I think we'll all admit that the one who keeps the family together, our children are closer to the relatives of the mother or to the relatives of the father.
Mother.
Just about every functional family. Your children are going to be closer to the women's side than to the men's side, because she's more connected to them, and therefore the children are more connected. Our feeling for our relatives, feeling to be connected to other people, comes from our mothers, and our mothers are more connected to their mother and to their sister and to their brother than they are to the husbands. That's what women change and add the dimension to the whole nature of what the Jewish people are. And the fact that Jewish people are very connected to all of society today, and no matter what, even people that abuse us and treat us terribly and shabbily, they need help. Earthquake comes. Who's the first one out there? Israel. Israel helps people. They send over their dogs, their triage, to countries that are either threatening to destroy them, and not only threatening to destroy them, countries that actually, in Argentina, that would actually were complicit in the bombing of the Jewish Y there. Who's the first one to help them? Israel. That feeling that you care about people even when they don't act to you in the proper way, that we don't get from our fathers, that we get from our mothers. And the Jewish people are defined by their mother. That's why the definition of a Jew is what? Who your mother is. The definition of a Jew is who your mother is. Not your father is a Jew, and your mother's not Jew, you're not a Jew. A Jew means you have to feel that connection to all of humanity. It comes out, it's a fascinating thing. The first nation, and this is thousands of years ago, that appreciated that women are a equal, and not only equal, beyond equal entity in the creation of a corporate entity called the state, is Judaism. The Jewish people were the first nation that, and of course the religious Jews know that. And so if anything, not only does the Torah not put down the woman, the Torah actually elevates the woman as she is part of the entity which creates the Jewish people. That does not exist by any other nation in the world. Today, it doesn't exist by any, and they grudgingly will, allow certain, and it takes time and on a case by case, and that's a tremendous blessing we have from the Torah. The Torah really understands. God created the universe, so God knows what a woman's capable of. He knows what a man adds to the world, and he understands you can't have a nation based on male values. You need this sensitivity that women have to create that entity. And therefore, in last week's Parsha, in Parshas Bo, and this week's Parsha, the Torah says, Vavarta, you have to celebrate, of course you have to celebrate a woman of every child's birth, male or female. We all went out of Egypt. We celebrate them all. But of course, Pidyon Ben, when we redeem them, that's only the boys, not the girls. I said that'll be a different discussion what the reason for that is. But in next week's Parsha, when we celebrate all of the Jewish people becoming a nation, we celebrate them as co-equals to us, co-equals to the men. And not only co-equals, ahead of the men. And that's an unbelievable thing, and that's a legacy we should be proud of as Jews. And as Jewish women, you should be proud of that. Instead of, feeling when people start attacking, Judaism is this and is that, and, but no, you don't really understand. Our husbands respect us. It's much deeper than all of that. The only nation that really considers women the part of the integral definition of defining what a man is and defining what the country is Judaism. And Judaism, this is a political document too. The Torah is telling you how to build a Jewish state. A Jewish state is men and women together, and that's why our children have certain sensitivities that the rest of the world doesn't have. It's not a coincidence that the Jewish people have totally different sensitivities. Your husband's ready to kill somebody because they were disrespectful to him. He said, "What do you want?" He has his own problems in life, and you have to care about him. You got to feel, and you got to take he's not really being mad at you. He's frustrated with himself.
The woman saying that?
What?
You're saying that the woman is saying that to her husband. Right.
Yeah. Every woman has a huge appreciation of other people. When she understands that other people, it's not about you. That if people are not nice to you, it's usually they have a problem. And
universally, women are more compassionate.
That's right. And they teach their husbands compassion. But the practical thing of being more compassionate is when somebody insults you, instead of your husband, I'm not inviting them to my bar mitzvah, I'm not doing that. They're having financial problems. Honey, they lost a child. Honey, he lost his job. Yes, he has a health problem. All the reasons that a man said, no more, I'm cutting them off my invitation list. And the wife said, no, it's a whole different thing. You don't understand what they're going through. Look what they're going through, that being able to empathize with somebody else. Not in.
So why do we say Sarah is more Gevurah and Abraham was more Chesed?
Let's just let that go there.
That's not the same?
No, go there.
Okay.
In fact, there it actually says clear that Sarah understood other people better than Abraham. Torah says that Sarah was more sensitive.
Even if you're Gevurah, you can understand other people better.
Sarah understood people better.
Mm-hmm.
She empathized with them. She had to restrain herself not to react. That's what her Gevurah was.
Oh, okay.
She was so able to empathize that she didn't react to their treating not nice. The real strength of a person is not banging somebody. The real strength of a person is restraining themselves and not attacking you. On that story, in the Talmud says, Sarah makeres ba'orchim. She and all women are recognized a guest better than a husband. So this is what Judaism is. So it's an incredible thing. If we really, there's no other way to read this story in the Torah. The Torah here is celebrating the women as a whole entity in the Jewish people. As a whole political entity, they're galvanizing them all. Now we can have a nation. Until now we can't have a nation. And it changes. We have to be recommanded in the mitzvahs. It's not enough that it's only our covenant with God. It's our covenant with God wants us to have a covenant with all of humanity. And that's right at the end of this chapter, 6 or 7 sentences later, the Torah says God recommanded the 7 Noahide laws. He recommanded them that all the Jewish people now had to do the 7 Noahide laws on a whole new basis, not just as a listening to God, but as being sensitive to other people. Yes, so we do celebrate women's births, and we celebrate. But when you understand that your respectedness doesn't mean that you have to have every bas mitzvah doesn't have to be as great as a bar mitzvah. The bar mitzvahs, the boy's going to be out there, and therefore he's welcomed into the community. A woman is never going to be out there, so she doesn't have to be getting aliyah to the Torah because she's not being welcomed into the community. She is the community. She's the welcoming committee. She's not the one that's going out to be accepted. She is the bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah. It's like a new thing in America. You have to make a bas mitzvah. It has to be the same price as the bar mitzvah. Otherwise, you're discriminating against your girl. Teach your daughter who she really is. A man is going to be out there. He's going to be out there, and you want a man to be out there. The women want the man to be out there because that's what the man wants. That's his nature, is to be out there. So you now welcome him into the community. Bar mitzvahs, he gets up in an aliyah, and you welcome into the community. A woman is the community. She's the one that's welcoming him. So you don't have to make a fancy bas mitzvah. You have to let her know what her job is, that she's going to be the community of the Jewish people. But her emphasis is to build the community. Her emphasis is to have children, develop their feelings, develop the family. That's what the woman does.
How does this issue of Miriam setting up a standard that both men and women lead the Jewish people as co-equals, with the idea that she ends up with leprosy and she's punished for doing this?
She's not punished for this. She's not punished for this at all. She's punished because she spoke Lashon Hara on Aaron HaKohen. Not punished for this. In fact, and Aaron defended her at that time. They had a very loving relationship. Mm-hmm. When we talk to that Parashat, I'll tell you why she thought you could do it and why not. That's not. She's not only, she's celebrated here.
Yeah.
There's a whole parsha in the Torah talking about her especially and what she did. And right after that says, and now that she did this, I have to give you the 7 Noachide laws again, because you have to do them because of your empathy for somebody else, for another human being. You have to care about somebody else, not just that you don't want to do anything wrong. I care about you. That's what, and now that's what it means, Choras HaHaluchos. Freedom is when you know who you are, and you care, and you understand who you are, then you're a free person. That's what we're learning in Pirkei Avos today. We're learning. Our question was, what is that being free? The Torah is imposing laws on you. No. Freedom is, I'm doing what I really want. The women intuit how real the Torah, living Torah is. They intuit that. They understand that this is the life lesson, and how this is something that's good for me and I feel good doing it. Therefore, that's what being free is. Being free, what was our question? How could you say being free? They got more mitzvahs. When I do what I want, I'm a free person. That's the definition of freedom. I'm doing what I want. Not I'm doing what I really want. Most people think being free is eating as much as I can want and drinking. Is that really good for me? Is that really good for me? To overeat, not to exercise, to drink myself drunk every night? Is that really good for me? It's not good for me. It's not good for me. Freedom is doing what's really good for me, but I have to understand it's good for me, otherwise I'm being controlled. The ones who really understand freedom are women, because they understand how the Torah is really good for you, and it's a life lesson, and it's a quality of life, and it elevates you as a human being. That's what being free is. Free doesn't mean doing whatever I want, because a person doesn't do what's good for them, they do what they want. Most people, they do what they want. They don't do what's good for them. Most people, you'll ask them, are you doing what you want? I mean, do they really want to look the way they look? Do they want to drink what they eat? They want to drink what they drink themselves? Is that what they really want? Is that what they really want?
I'm just thinking that's a lower level. Like just doing what comes naturally is like a lower level.
It's not only coming.
A person has to put them on we're human beings. We have to put ourselves on a little higher level.
Which means
control ourselves and be.
No, that's what I'm telling you. It's
not control, but
doing what you really know is good for you.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's what I mean.
But that's what I'm saying. That's a tremendous
doing
advantage.
What's good for us and for other people.
Yeah, but that's a tremendous advantage that a woman has, that she understands intuitively what is really good for her. That Torah is really teaching you things that are good for you. It's an incredible thing that Torah is teaching them what's really good for them. A man, I get up in the morning and I put on tefillin because God told me to put on tefillin. A woman does everything because she knows it's really good for her. She does it with a whole different kind of enthusiasm, and therefore she doesn't have to go through a lot of the things that a man does, because a man has to be trained, and hopefully eventually he'll get to do it for the right reason. A woman doesn't need to do that. She's doing what she intuitively understands is right for her.
And for other people.
It's a lot of pride in being a woman. Don't take pride in what the Judaism taught, the way the Torah tells us who we are, how a woman is a sense of pride. And when you get the criticisms, I don't say everybody get, but if you meet people, you're usually on the defensive. You see a Jewish woman covering her hair. I see they got you chained too, And then explain that modesty is really something that makes you feel good about yourself. That's not something that doesn't make you feel good. I mean, if you are really modest. I don't mean that if you wear 20 carats of diamonds and long sleeves, that's modest. But if you're a really modest person, that you dress understated and you don't show off your money and you're really modest, that's a great feeling. You feel elevated. You feel you're aristocratic. You take a look at Queen Elizabeth. That's a woman who dresses understated, and she's regal. The ones that are out there with all kind of gaudy jewelry or beautiful, expensive diamonds.
And the ring that her grandson gave to his kala was not a gaudy ring. It was just inherited from the grandmother. It was a blue.
That's what aristocracy
sapphire.
is.
It was very plain.
It's aristocracy. A woman doesn't want to be out there. She doesn't want to be noticed. She wants to put the man out there. And she wants to just be herself. She wants to be secure in herself. So what it's saying over here, there's no freedom other than somebody who's totally in touch with themselves. That's what the definition of freedom. Because it elevates you. You feel elevated, and therefore that's really being free. Everything you do, you feel ennobles you. If you feel more ennobled by what you do, then you're a free person. If you just do things because they're mitzvahs, you don't feel free. In fact, I don't know if I mentioned it last week. I don't know if I've done that. What does the word mitzvah mean? Did I talk about this last week?
Attachments, commitment.
What?
Empower.
Empower. Oh, yeah, you said that.
I'm sorry? Sylvie, what did I say, man?
Empower.
Empower you.
Empower.
Empowered, that's right.
That's what you said.
Okay, anyway, everybody remember from last week. That's good. That's what the Torah, that's in the Torah. The text in the Torah means empowered. That's the way a person has to feel when they do. If it doesn't empower you, it means you're not doing them properly. And a woman intuitively understands her being empowered greater than a man.